Good evening, Vikram there. Give me 1 second, I'm just starting the stream now. Let's hide that. Let's go back here. Alright, cool. We have that. Do I have to close anything else? Logo. This is the little stuff we're gonna start with today. Nice. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome, awesome. Not much, man. Not much. Yeah, just another day. Another day, just yeah, I just have some time. Good evening, Free Space. Good to see you. I just have some time, and I'm still a little bit sick, so no gym or anything like that. So yeah, I just figured, you know, so I'm not gonna go to the gym today. I need to get better a bit more. I'll just stream. But thank you very much for coming, Free Space. I appreciate that, man. Okay, today we're gonna continue fixing some things. I have a to-do list that I wrote a couple of evenings ago, or maybe even, I don't know when I streamed last. Was it last night or night before? I don't remember. I have a couple of things here to fix, and a couple of components to build. Actually, I'm just gonna add this here. Create form actions components and reuse it with most of the forms. So maybe we're gonna start the stream with some front end, and then we're gonna see where it takes us. Let me put the volume of music a bit down, I suppose. I guess it's too loud. Microphone, my microphone is good. That's great. Okay, super. Yeah, so some silly things today. I'm gonna start the stream with that, just updating our core library, right? This library that I wrote for Programmer Network. I'm just gonna create some new things here very quickly to say, because I've realized that yeah, I need these things in a lot of different places. So I'm just going to start there. Okay, so basically just for the reference, I'm making these actions that I can then reuse across all of my forms across Programmer Network project, right? Because we have a bunch of forms, and now I'm refactoring the courses CMS. So for example, if I go to my own things, you can see that there's a bunch of, if I actually go to some other course like this one, there's, you know, bunch of these actions all over the place. So instead of just duplicating that, let's, you know, create a reusable component that I will reuse across places. Yeah, okay. And then another thing that I wanted is we need my dialog component. So if we go over here, I believe I built a native HTML5 dialog. So this thing basically, so when you click it, we need a confirmation, right? So let's actually go to dialog stories, see how I've done that. And then we'll just replicate that. Okay, so essentially we need something like this, right? So we're gonna put that somewhere here in the DOM. That's gonna be that's gonna be hidden by default, and we're gonna have some reference, some ref, some pointer to some node here that's we're gonna invoke, right? Just gonna import my core components here. We actually don't need this. And over here, we'll just say hello world for now. And then I'll go to my component here. Jig, good evening, buddy. Very good, man. I just started the stream like 5 minutes ago. Maybe even less. Not much, man, not much. What about yourself? How are you? And then we'll basically say, hey, when I click on delete, right? So essentially here we'll show this dialog when we click on delete, for example, blah, blah, blah. So yeah. And then in there, we'll need to have some handler over here, right? That's gonna, so here we're gonna have some buttons, right? We're gonna say, yeah, right? But also we're gonna have, I don't know, something. We're designing this together, so it's fine. Let's just say here, confirm or something. And it's gonna be something like this, right? So now if we go to form actions, this thing we're building, right? That should open up. Nice, man. Nice, dude. That's very good. Congrats, dude. Congrats. Very nice. All right, and now let's design basically the content inside here. So we need to decide whatever the dialogue is actually going to show, right? So of course we're gonna have to show some sort of a text, right? So we're gonna import Ismail. Hey, good evening, buddy. How are you doing? Are you sure you want to delete this item, right? Something like that. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So what we're going to do here, we can say Yale, which is our core library, this whole thing we built. P, we're gonna say give it a padding on all sides. Let's put this inside of another div, right? And then here we'll say Yale flex. We're gonna say Yale flex column. Yes, sure. And then we're gonna say yeah, sure. And then we're gonna wrap that inside of another thing, sure. And yeah, you can imagine we're going to say here it's another flex wrapper, right? But Josie, I did, and you were actually right. Yeah, I fixed that. So you were actually right that technically, because I lacked the transaction there. It is true that multiple things. So there was a potential for raise condition. Yes. So you were right for sure. You were absolutely right. Absolutely right. No, absolutely. I mean, that's why I appreciate very much when you guys, you know, also like are involved into development when I'm coding live, right? I appreciate that a lot because, of course, answering questions and doing a lot of other things, right? Is yeah, it's always great when you guys are around and when you can, you know, like just. So thank you. Well, that's what I guess what I'm trying to say. Thanks. Nah, I'm not gonna like that, but it's okay. Let's see, do we have something like remove, delete, danger maybe, no, warning. Right back at you, man. Right back at you. Maybe skull. I remember that I had some skull icons, right? And then let's give it some class name here. We don't actually need that because I believe I have my own class for that. Cedric, my friend, good evening. Guys, by the way, this text that I put, this programmer network thing on the screen, hopefully it doesn't annoy you and hopefully it's going to be clear now what we do in this stream. Because I just reacted to, yeah, I just reacted to your comments. Nice, nice. Okay, very nice. Actually, I don't dislike this at all. I don't dislike this at all, actually. I guess we could, in theory, center this one, right? So we could do something like this, right? Are you sure you want to delete this item? I mean, honestly, yeah, I don't think that's terrible. I don't think that at all. Maybe slightly a bit more spacing between them. Something like maybe that, right? Or maybe a little bit less. I don't actually know. But yeah, it's absolutely not terrible, I think. I don't know what you guys think, but Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, let's see. I mean, it's almost there. This is really almost all I need, all we need. Then I'll need to fix some other things in a moment. Then we're gonna do some backend as well. Are you sure you want to delete this item? I guess we could extend the props for this message. We could extend the label for the save button, because this can basically be update as well, right? But we could have some good defaults, so in many circumstances we don't need it. Can you try icon on left side, buttons on the right side? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, certainly. Actually, just give me 1 second. One thing that I've noticed now is that, and I should do that on the dialog itself, I should give it a default, because all of this is our core library, if you remember, right? So I see a problem here, and I might need to update tests after this, but yeah, exactly, right? So actually, nah, let's just say BG here. No, actually I called it background, I believe, yeah. Yeah, because it was very transparent. That wasn't good. I also don't like this border. Let's say border 5 or something like that. Or maybe something like this. Yeah, maybe. I mean, actually, who the hell gives a crap, right? I mean, it doesn't matter that much. Okay, I think that's not terrible. And maybe not too... Yeah, that's very minimalistic, so I like that. Octay, good evening. Good, man. I just started the stream a couple of minutes ago. Very good. You know, I never know when I'm gonna stream. I just turned out that I have some time now, so good. The thing is, so I'm thinking about putting things on the right side. I don't disagree with you. I think you're right. The problem is, this is a systematic thing, right? If I go to the product right now, actually I'm not consistent in that, I think. Let's see, like create course. You see here, there on the left. Let's see if I go to courses now. Give me one moment. Here, there to the left. Okay. No, I don't have the pattern, so I think you're absolutely right. Let's actually do it like you claim. I agree with you, actually. Let's just make a decision now. I'm gonna update this in the whole programmer network product. Let's just stick to the, I think it's, the problem is I read an article on this maybe 10-15 years ago, literally on this, what we're discussing now. I read an awesome article, I don't know if it's still online. There are some designer did a study case or whatever you call it on these types of things. He went to Mac OS, Windows, some most popular websites, and he kind of did a research on how these platforms do this. So there's really no right or wrong way. The only right way is the consistent way, and only wrong way is inconsistent way. So either put them in the center or left or right, but stick to it so the users get used to it, right? So let's just agree in this stream today that we will in fact keep them to the right? And that way I'll just and now I then need to reverse the cancel and confirm, right? So yeah, actually I agree with that. I also think that, yeah, I agree with Cedric that and then this confirm shouldn't actually be outlined. But that's another thing we're gonna have to fix now. And okay, let me just do one thing. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also a very good point, free space. I agree with you, man. Absolutely, 100%. That's actually a very good point. Exactly, the mobile experience as well. All right, so we'll need to write tests for this component, but let's write it soon when we're actually done, because it's not really a TDD issue per se, right? So we'll see about that. Give me 1 second. Yeah. All right, so what I'm actually going to do, I've been just doing some refactoring of the button, because button is starting to become very complex that we have, because we have shit tons of these variants and stuff, and I've also just created the error one. So let me actually see what the hell I've done. Because this here is inaccurate. Okay, that's now accurate, kinda. That's a Tailwind prefix. You can prefix your classes in Tailwind so they don't collide with other classes, because this is a third-party library that I built, right? So fundamentally, when I import it in my project, it doesn't collide with my existing Tailwind project, right? Yeah, so I can see that there's few things fucked up now. One is the cursor pointer, that's not working correctly. It's a normal, so this class is not applied properly. And I mean, technically, how would it be? Well, because this is not really used anywhere, right? I mean, maybe I shouldn't have really done this refactor now. Actually, yeah, let's not, yeah. Yeah, let's not do that right now. I mean, actually, you know what? Let's maybe use AI to just help quickly with this. So let's just fix that and then continue. I don't know, I don't want to spend much time on this, but because we are now adding a bunch of variants, I just wanted to kind of clean it up so it looks nicer. Oh. All right, so now it's kind of working. So we can see, yeah, the cursors are actually properly added. I'm just gonna, we also have the tests written for this, it's fine. I always like to do my sanity check this way, right? So that is all correct so far. That is kind of correct as well. The only thing that's not correct right now is the loading state for some of them. So this one, so essentially, yeah, so when we hover over this one, so if we go to the button over here, What would take precedence if you had text white and prefix text yellows? Well, yeah, that depends also. That depends how we are merging the classes, right? I guess. Give me 3 seconds. So we had filled spinning. Yeah, so basically that is the only wrong state that I see. Secondary loading. Yeah, so the only issue we have essentially is when we hover a filled button that's spinning, right? So that is the problem. Okay. Filled button that's spinning. So that would be the default one. Yeah, but we would need to, yeah, so this is a little complex, just tiny bit. Because if we actually do this, right, exactly. So maybe we just need to, anytime you want, buddy, anytime. We can also talk now during the stream if you want. Fine by me. Yeah. If you're referring to the Udemy course, for sure it's gonna happen this year, yeah. Let me just fix this tiny thing and push it to NPM and then we talk. Why not? That sounds great, man. Give me 1 second. We're having an issue. We're having an issue with the spinner, basically. That's the only thing. So we need to... so let's write some meta code here. Finishing with food, perfect. So if the button is filled and loading, spinner should be dark, right? If the button... Yeah, I mean, we know that kind of, right? So I guess, what if we just kind of nuke this one, right? And then we control it in our utils here. So this is the default one, which would be the filled one. Yeah, right. Then that's also wrong. Exactly. Yeah. Alright, give me a second. Let me just nuke this slowly. Oh shit, that's a wrong one. Okay. So this is correct. And then should be this, right? Let me just try something like this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that should be technically correct. All right. Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Sure. Sure. Yeah, that one isn't correct, so we need to fix that one as well. PJ, hey, good man, how are you? All right, just give me a second. All right, so that's kind of okay. The only thing that I'm wondering is the style of this now, but it can't be this radical, right? So we need to kind of be careful there, but yeah, that's maybe fine. Sure. Then we have this. Cool. And then there's something wrong with this one. So this one should not be transparent, and it is. Yeah, right? Yeah, that is problematic a bit. Where did you send me this message? On Discord? All right, nice. I think that's good. Oh, on Twitch. Okay, I'll take a look. I'll take a look. No, not that I know of, Cedric. Let's jump on a call now during the stream. Give me a second, and then we figure it out. Okay, let me just do one more sanity check. Let me just ensure that all of them are correct. Yeah, fuck my life. This one isn't. Outline spinning. AI is farting out. cover, transparent. Ah, fuck. My bad. 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. I guess the only thing that now we need here just left, improvements in these things, is that, and that's a little bit annoying, right? That adds an additional complexity because we don't want things to be right, so essentially, you see, like when something is loading, it should not be shown as clickable, right? So that's the only little thing we need to update now. So essentially, we need to extend this utility that I wrote here. At this point, we should just turn this into an object, right, and pass it because it's getting out of hand with the amount of arguments that it's getting, right? So we'll just do something like this. Get variant classes. Let's actually go here. Export interface EI get variant classes. Let's call this args. It's not props, arguments. And then yeah, over here we're gonna say args whatever. We'll spread them where this structure here will pass as loading state over here. Yeah, that's fucking shitty, man. Oh, I see. My bad. Okay. Yeah, that was wrong. Okay, sure, no problem. Nah. We'll just use this type and then we'll rename it. Do that, right? Do this. Alright, cool. Jesus fucking Christ, man. What is this crap? Class name, why is it not there? Alright, cool. Then we'll pass this fella to is loading here. All right, so now we have that loading state pass there. This really now needs to be a function instead. That's gonna get some stuff. For now, it's gonna get this loading, right? Yeah, and now we can actually use that in here. So what do we want to say? We want to say, hey, you know what? If you are loading, so this cursor over here is really the only thing we need to alter. So we're gonna say here, we're gonna say, you know what? Add that if it's not loading, right? What? Sure. And yeah, as we can see, that is the case. But we also probably don't want to make it hoverable either. So that's another thing we probably want to do. So let's get over here. So that's fine. And now for each variation, we have to do the same, right? So if it's loading, I mean, we could in theory just leave it like this, right? It's okay. It's okay that it does this, but that indicates action. So that kind of sucks ass, right? So maybe not so great. So we could in theory. Yeah, so what we could do theoretically, right, is something like this again. But no, not really, not fully like that. So we only want to all right, that's a bit weird. Give me a second. I mean, it's almost perfect now. Now I'm almost happy with it. I think we're almost there just with improving this a bit. Let's just finalize that, right? So the like we can't have this. We need it to stay like if something is happening, if there's some promise being resolved, we can't indicate that you can do something, have an action, right? So let's go through them very quickly. So we have this disabled, fine. Then we need to deal with these hovers. So if I have a default yeah, this also feels wrong a bit. Okay, because of that. All right, cool. So if this one is exactly. So where am I? Yeah, over here. I see. Okay. So it is this guy over here, right? Sure. Yeah, sure. So we'll do actually something like this. We'll break it for a second. So we don't really. So if we go here, we still want that to happen. Yeah, it's a little bit I mean, yeah. So the only thing that's wrong now is that we're altering the color. So where is it? Is this doing it? Outlined, hover, primary, do we have? Yeah, I think it's this shit fucking it up here. Yeah, exactly, right? Okay, cool. So we shouldn't have that there at all. Okay, good. Almost there, almost there. So now we have this, which doesn't work properly yet. This now does work. You can see it doesn't show any action. So this is now the one. So the outlined now is the one we need to fix, I think. So now we have the outlined one here. And this is the one we need to fix kind of in a very similar fashion, right? So we want to say, so if it's spinning and I hover over it, kind of do nothing, right? So this is all good. I'll actually just do something like this for a second, just so we see what it is that we actually have to do. Yeah, so pretty much something like this, right? That's now fucked up. It's okay. Okay, good. Good. I mean, you could only say that our secondary button kind of doesn't follow the same pattern, right? But maybe that's okay. Then this one, yeah, also maybe shouldn't be doing that. Let's see here. That's fine. That's fine. And also we need to fix that one lastly, right? Yeah, there we go. Okay, great. Maybe that's it. So now if we go back to this thing that we were actually making, right? That should kind of be fine now, almost, I guess. How do you set up these styles website? Can you be a little bit more specific, Vovu? I don't know what do you mean. How do I set it up? Set it up where? Sorry. This is the library I built for Programming Network. And this is called Storybook. So this is where you lay out all of your components. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, probably there's gonna be tiny things to still work on there, but let's just use AI for this because it's amazing for automating this type of shit, right? So let's just say given button.test tsx, let's write around 10 tests for, what is it, form actions Max, good evening, Max. How you doing, buddy? Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for saying something. All right, let's generate tests for this. Let's see if I probably broke a bunch of tests for button. That's perfectly fine. That's why we have them, to break them and then fix them. Yeah, so let's Hasbro. So that is problematic now. Yeah, we'll fix that. But let's actually see. Let's see about the tests that this guy wrote. Now the AI. Where is the test file? Accept. Okay, so let's see what it did. So it's gonna do. It did snapshot. It did a test to make sure that all buttons are rendered. Okay, sure, not very useful, but that's what the component is pure. It's a pure function, pretty much. Does a spy on a save. This is probably gonna fail, but we'll see. Okay, cool. Let's run these tests again and see what happens. I'm sure several will fail. Yeah, of course. All right, so the test is having obviously problems with accessing the ref. Let's see. So here it's trying to test if the dialog opens when delete is clicked. Okay, so let's obviously comment out some of these tests. Let's actually comment out a few others just so we can fix them one by one. Let me just run this again. So let's fix the button one. I'm cooking up some React Native. I mean, yeah, that's great, man. Not much to say. If you have something to build, right, then for sure, dude. Absolutely. Yeah. What can I say? I mean, React Native is good if you don't want to go build native applications like using Objective-C or Swift or something like that, right? So for sure, why not, man? Absolutely. Absolutely. Has correct styles when not disabled. Why the fuck am I not finding this globally? Has correct styles when loading and filled. Has correct styles when loading and filled. Yeah, actually, I don't think we need this anymore, right? Yeah, because the background is transparent then, right? Jesus Christ, dude. Ah, I'm actually updating the wrong thing, Jesus. Yeah, that should make the test pass. And it's good that it's failing because we need to understand that our intentions are in fact correct. Has correct styles when disabled and filled. Expected the element to have this class name. And that's of course probably not. Let's take a look at that. Disabled and filled. So disabled. All right, so that's good. So that is good. Okay, now let's focus on these, right? So now we have some of these failing here. Type error ref.current close is not a function. So if we take a look at this new component we're building, not this crap, but this thing here. That's at least where the test is failing. So when we programmatically invoke the click inside of a test, right? Whereas when we try to spy on it, we are essentially getting, we're having an issue with a ref, right? In simple words, yeah, the dialog ref is undefined, right? So if we actually log this, we'll probably notice that that in fact doesn't exist, which is the problem, right? So we'll see now when we print that reference that a current is null, right? Of course, we can fix that. We can protect ourselves just by adding conditional operator, right? And then the tests are not going to fail for that, for the syntax error, but a test will still not pass, right? So we'll need to figure out a way with vtest or whatever how to kind of solve this issue, right? Yeah. Let me actually see what the hell is happening in here. Sure. Yeah, so this is kind of where it's farting out, right? Because we're trying to access the close, but the current is null, right? So we're not safeguarding ourselves there. but still, that's easy. It's just how do we even get to that point, right? So how do we even get to a point of calling that is the question, right? Because we shouldn't even be able to do that. Let's actually do a little bit of a repetitive thing here, right? So let's just do an early return, right? Then we're gonna do the same in every single one. So instead of using ternary operator, I'll just say, you know what, fuck you. Yeah, I think we're... Okay, so now the question becomes... Oh, I see. So essentially you can see as soon as... I see what's happening. So as soon as our component loads the dialog has this use effect here that's simply going to run on the component mount, right? And because it's by default the dialog is not opened, so this is kind of, you could say, almost a wrong logic to say, right? So we would need, probably I would need to extend this component with something to tell it, hey, you actually never loaded at the first place, so you don't actually have to close yourself, right? But of course, right, here we can also safeguard ourselves against that, right? So we can also say if there's no reference yet to any HTML node, then just just screw you, right? So this, let's see that if this does anything now. Well, I mean, considering we're actually passing this point, then let's see what it is, because at this point in time, I'm a little bit skeptical here. Let's see. Yeah, so we do have some ref, right? It just seems that that ref points to something wrong, right? So that seems to be the problem. So this ref is pointing to... I mean, yeah, we can just do this and solve that issue, but yeah, I'm not so... Yeah, we need to figure out what the hell is this thing pointing to. Yeah, because keep in mind what we're using here, right, is the native HTML5 dialog. So if you're wondering, hey Alex, how the hell do you expect to access these close and show modal and stuff? Yale, basically this library that I wrote, is using the native dialog. So if you didn't know, HTML5 provides a native dialog, and here it is, right? So what I'm doing for Yale component is, and this is probably the most efficient dialog you can use for your UI, because it's almost fully supported in the browser, the whole functionality, right? So you can see, if we click the playground over here on MDN, that's really the dialog, fully in the browser, right? No fancy modern JS or any bullshit like that, right? So that's what we're doing, and that's why it's even strange that the close isn't found, at least when we run the test, because it has to be, because we are in fact pointing to our dialog. We are using a forward ref over here. So I'm not quite sure now when we run the test why it is that the close actually isn't there. So oops, the fuck did I do here? So it could be very easily. Yeah, but we don't need that. Yes, you probably do, but we don't need that. I've never yet built a feature that where I'm showing multiple dialogues at the same time. And if I did, I would probably make a few steps back and realize that I'm doing something wrong UX-wise, right? Opinion about the cucumber IO. I have no idea what that is. Let me paste that link and see. Cucumber IO. Cucumber. Oh, I might have actually heard in some weekly digest or something about this. Cucumber is tool for running automated acceptance tests written in Play language. You know, I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this. I would have to accept that I'm a guy who started writing code 25 years ago, right? So whenever I see these types of things, because of my past, I'm very skeptical. This is not to say that this doesn't work. If it does work, I mean, hell yeah. I just have a hard time believing that this fully works, which then becomes probably even bigger of a hustle than if it didn't work at all. Because if this just partially works, you write a bit of text, but you still have to fix this and that, yeah. Because in reality, honestly, this is a way how end-to-end tests in reality, right? In like perfect world, this is in fact how we would want to write tests, right? So because tests are supposed to convey our human desire of how we want software to work, right? So for example, your PM, your product manager could write these expectations, and this would be fantastic. So if one day we truly get a tool like this, then we could delegate writing tests to not just developers that need to learn this shitty syntax and assertions and spies and selectors and stuff, but we could just write. I just don't trust that that we are even remotely close to that yet in this industry, right? But I mean, if this delivers, then honestly, I think it would be great. I just have a hard time believing that. It just sounds way too unrealistic for this to just work, right? And I don't know. I think you could do your research by just checking to some of the repositories, seeing how many issues there are. Like we could probably click here, right? 5,000 stars, decent. Issues 47. That's also very good. I mean, but let's see how many closed issues. Yeah, I mean, this is honestly pretty good, to be honest. I mean, let's actually see at what rate are they closing these issues. So, I mean, they don't have many tags here, but hard for me to tell, right? I would need to use the tool in production, as I always say, in order to be able to do due diligence. As you might know, I typically don't share opinions and things that I haven't used in production, because any opinions other than that are useless, right? You need to use something with people in reality, with building real stuff to actually Exactly, and if that's the case, then that's trouble, right? Then that becomes even worse than just writing tests the way that we're used to, with a deterministic. The thing is, right, when you're writing any types of these end-to-end tests, which are very difficult to write because you need to select things, you need to do it programmatically, right? Your goal is always to make it as deterministic as possible. So in simple words, how can I make this work as many times as possible, right? And these magical tools maybe this can work on a Hello World app or whatever, but if you need to test it in production to have an opinion, would you decide to test in production? The thing is, so the thing is, like, I think your question is very good, free space. I think I can have assumptions about technology and opinions based on feelings that, of course, I can share. So, for example, I don't know, some of you asked me about this, and I can share out of my butthole opinion, right? The main reason why I'm very like vocal when I answer these questions is that I don't want you to get a wrong impression for me. So for example, I just gave you my opinion on this. I did like a 5-minute thing, but you should be very careful about the answer I gave because I haven't used it in production, right? So of course that I do have opinions based on certain things when I see them, but to give valuable insights on anything, I try to, that's literally one of my basic rules in life, like try not to have opinion, at least not a strong opinion on things that you can't provide substantial evidence or facts about, right? Because that's basically what this is the way to be credible, and this is the way to gain respect of people. It's better to say I don't know than try to bullshit your argument into it, right? And this is for those of people who've been part of this stream for a long time. They know that that's typically how I do it, and I do it for myself, not for you. I do it just so I don't feel like an asshole, right? So if I don't know something, it's just better to say I don't know. Otherwise, it's then you, because you train yourself then to have opinions on everything, right? And as I always say, opinions are like assholes, right? Everybody has one, right? I mean, exactly right. So yeah. I mean, what is the point of an opinion without some substantial, like substantial information? That's the point, right? Like you, some of you might or might not respect me, and either way, that's great. But I mean, sharing an opinion is like without any value is pointless, right? That's like saying I think that. I mean, I also, yeah, you get what I mean. It's, I mean, maybe also having too many opinions is also bad, right? Because I mean, people form opinions today in 5 seconds, right? So that's also a mental illness in a way, right? Everybody today has opinion about everything, things they do know and things that they have no fucking clue about, right? So this is a danger for your own brain. You have to choose how you want your brain to work. You don't have to have an opinion about everything, right? Nobody is putting a gun on your head and saying you must have an opinion on every. You don't have to have opinion on everything, right? And if you do want to have it, then do the research and then at least formulate it in some intellectual way, right? These opinions are the reason why this community is so driven by influencers and stuff, right? Is because it's very quick, you know, formulating opinions out of your asshole is very cheap. You don't it doesn't require effort. It doesn't require sitting down and actually doing your due diligence, right? It's basically just like, oh, I'm gonna see this and I have an opinion, right? But that is not a way to think and critically think and develop yourself, right? That's what differentiated Tesla and Einstein and a lot of these great minds, is that they put a lot of thought and asked a lot of amazing questions, right? Like I said many times in this stream, Einstein said if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes looking for the right questions to ask, right? So you get what I mean. So asking the right questions and doing research and figuring things out based on these things is what makes you an engineer. That's what engineering has always been about, right? Nobi, very, very glad to hear that. Thank you very much for being here. So this is really all part of critical thinking and how you can develop yourself, right? That's at least what I think, how I operate. Okay, yeah. So for some reason, okay, let's try to use the AI here a little bit. Let's actually run the tests inside of the, because these are now the tooling types of issues, and I don't know how to fix this because it's something to do with the v-test, with the library itself most likely, right? But we can see that the ref, when we run the test, is not correct, right? So it's not setting the correct ref. So let's say here it seems that when running the test, a reference to a dialog is not set correctly, which results in .close method not existing on the DOM object. He's doing internship in first of college. Good. I mean, you should strive to do as much work and gain experience as you can, no matter how old or young you are, right? So it absolutely is. Try to do internships your whole life, if you get what I mean, right? There's nothing that beats practice. Absolutely nothing, right? So absolutely yes. Oof. Yeah, I mean, I don't like this very much. I understand what is it doing, and I'll kind of try to walk you through and explain. Oof. Yeah, wait, maybe there is v-test HTML5 dialog. Yeah, JS DOM, right? So this is 4 years ago. Yeah. The status is that we are waiting on you to submit a pull request implementing this feature. I like this response. Yeah, I mean, kind of, it seems that we're gonna have to mock it, right? Yeah, right, like, we're gonna have to mock it like this, most likely. I think you can just type GitHub or some, I don't know how Twitch works, but you can do things like this, right? Anyway, okay, so yeah, so we're gonna have to mock this, right? And that is not incorrect. So we're gonna have to do this. I actually don't know what's up with. It's the component is missing a. I see what's happening here. Okay, so we have a lambda function here. So let's give it a name like this maybe, or yeah, we just need to give it a display name, right? That's why it's. Yeah. So it seems that we will need to mock the dialog so it works. So it's either that the version of the virtual DOM that this library is using doesn't have it or whatever. But either way, let's just do like ts ignore. Let's just test this. I have absolutely no clue if this is gonna help. Okay, well, I mean, it did something, sure. Yeah. Sure. Found multiple elements with text. Okay, so it kind of did work, right? So the mocking, in fact, did work, right? Okay, that's good. Let's just go through this, right? So essentially, what we had to do is we had to mock the implementation of the HTML5 dialog object in the browser. I actually don't know if this is needed, but we're just defining some we're defining these methods on the native HTML element on the prototype, right? So if you don't know JavaScript well enough, JavaScript is using prototypal inheritance, right? So in JavaScript we have these native objects like number and an object itself, array, etc., etc. And then the DOM, document object model, class has all of these. The browser basically itself implements all of these objects, and then what we're doing here, what AI just wrote, is that it's extending the HTML element prototype with these methods. And if you remember, our tests failed, saying, "Hey, Alex, there's no close method on that reference," right? But I'm not sure if this is actually doing anything, because I don't trust that this is the case. So let's actually just comment this out for a moment. I believe it's mocking the dialogue itself that's making this pass. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So extending the prototype is not necessary. How much time should I give learning? I mean, Adrit, I'm very sorry, my friend, but these are very vague questions, right? I cannot give you an answer to that. I don't know what do you even mean by that, right? How much time should I do X, Y, Z, right? I don't know, honestly. You should learn as much as you possibly can, right? So these are incredibly broad, general, and vague questions, right? You should learn the core language that you're planning to write as much as you possibly can, right? That is crucial. So there's no really question about that. So if you can learn the native language that you're writing, you should, right? All right, let's see. Let's now comment them one by one and see if they will pass. Yeah, so right now basically it's failing. Maybe yeah, so we're gonna have, yeah, so I'm not gonna actually test this one, because basically here we're rather testing the dialogue and not this new component that we're writing here, right? So some of these tests I'll simply nuke, and because I actually don't care. This is so irrelevant that the thing is when it comes to, so basically before all of this, before the programming became mainstream, right? These types of questions didn't exist, right? Like, should I learn JavaScript if I want to write JavaScript, right? These questions several years ago would have been considered ridiculous questions, right? That's like saying, should I learn a car? Should I learn to drive a car if I want to drive a car, right? So today, of course, because of all of these abstractions, because all of the tutorials and stuff, beginners skip a lot of fundamentals, a lot of basics, which is why they end up sucking for a very long time, because they just keep brute forcing their way through. So these types of questions never existed 5-10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like somebody asking, you know, I want to be an English teacher, should I learn English, right? How well should I know English, right? So these types of things are pretty relatively new, right? And they are ridiculous, I must say. So asking a question such as, should I learn JavaScript if I'm gonna write JavaScript is or Rust or whatever else, right? Is, of course you should learn it, right? That is, yeah. My first language was Pascal. I believe it was. So my first language was assembly. Was one of the most unenjoyable things in my life when I was very young. It was on Motorola. It was on 8-bit CPU, Motorola 6800, I believe. Nobody, hey. And then it was Pascal in my elementary school. Pascal and COBOL, I believe. Then it was C. It was PHP 3, Visual Basic 6, C++ 98, a little bit of Haskell. I never wrote it professionally, but Haskell was my first kind of entry to functional programming, and today I am you could say, almost a functional programmer whenever I can be. But yeah, that kind of like PHP was very popular when I was a teenager. I'm 36 years old now, so when I was maybe 18 or 15, we wrote a lot of PHP. PHP was super popular. We had, IRC, and we had, bunch of stuff was written. We had WordPress, Joomla, so it was also a lot of PHP. I sometimes miss that language, even though there's very little to miss. I often miss that language. Too young, you need to live better life. I mean, dude, I have an amazing life. I have a wife and kids and an amazing job, so I have no fucking idea what you're talking about, bro. And I don't think you do either. You know what the fundamental question is? Who asked? I mean, yeah, right. You think starting with assembly? Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think starting with assembly today would make you hate programming, right? JigDev, I'm just a natural troll, man. That's all. No, I think assembly, I think that I've seen a couple of videos or comments here in my stream. People asking me, hey Alex, if I learn C programming or Rust or if I learn any programming language with memory management, will I become a better web developer? Also, the answer is no, right? There's a lot of these bullshit, there's a lot of the propaganda online, as I always say, especially in programming industry, right? And some of these idiots are sharing this bullshit that has nothing to do with reality, right? So this makes absolutely zero sense. There's zero correlation between writing CPU drivers, GPU drivers, kernels, and programming PCBs or Raspberry Pis and building web apps. So they're vastly different skill sets, different details, different focus. So if you ever hear somebody saying this, just tell them they're fucking idiots, right? When I was learning to program, and YouTube didn't exist. YouTube doesn't exist, you know, for forever, right? So there's a lot of this bullshit crap online. Be very careful about that, right? Being a good web developer, for example, or being a good C developer, a good embedded developer, they require a different focus. Embedded developer is embedded developers are focusing. How do I know? Well, I worked with embedded developers for several years, right? When you're doing C, you're focusing on making sure that your hardware works most of the time. You have very limited memory on very limited hardware, like small PCBs, like let's say streaming devices or a little Wi-Fi dongles or whatever, right? So most of your work is optimizing for CPU and optimizing for memory because you have 512 megabytes of RAM, right, for example. Whereas a web developer has to focus on many other things and has to understand also the business side of things and the user, and has to have an eye for how things look like, how they feel. So mixing these two worlds is just ridiculous, right? You will not be a better JavaScript developer by knowing C, right? Because you're not optimizing JavaScript for memory. That's why you have a garbage collector, right? So it's just some of these idiots are saying these things, which is ridiculous, right? It's just very misleading for a lot of younger people, right? It makes absolutely no sense. That's like, there is no difference in saying that C is making you better developer if you're web. It's almost like saying if you learn CSS, you're gonna be better. You're gonna become better C developer, right? It's just, it makes absolutely no. Am I saying whatsoever that you shouldn't learn new things and learn low-level programming? Of course you should. Sure, but it's not gonna make you write better React components. That's the point. It's not gonna make you write better Tailwind, etc. Right? So that is the point. Somebody asked me, is this distance between delete and stuff intentional? Yeah, it is, but it still doesn't look so good, right? Does it? So we should probably do something about it, right? Okay, let me just do one thing whatsoever. We need to test this with a promise. Does intelligence matter with the skill set? Intelligence matters with every skill set, right? But it's not mandatory, right? Stupid people can do great things as well. They just need to put in more effort, right? So yeah, you don't need to be, especially to write programming languages, any language, you can be as dumb as fuck. I mean, most of us are actually very dumb. We just pretend to be smart, right? But fundamentally, writing code there's nothing impressive about it, honestly. There's nothing impressive about writing code. Anybody can learn this skill, literally. Anybody. It's like every other job. It's a matter of just repeating the same shit every day, and that's it. There's no difference. I'm not saying that you're dumb at all. I never said that. I don't know where you got that from. I never said that you're dumb. I'm just saying you don't need to be. You asked the question: do you have to be super? Does the intelligence matter? And I'm saying, I mean, not really. But the user doesn't have limited memory, and nobody cares about memory, right? So that is the thing. Nobody cares about memory, right? Nobody today, except being embedded developer, writes code and thinks about memory, right? So nobody. That's literally what I said. Yes, unless you're writing drivers or whatever, nobody cares, right? The 99.9% of software today is highly unoptimized. Video games are highly unoptimized. Most of the software that you run on your computer right now is highly unoptimized. Why? Because nobody cares, right? Nobody cares, man. I mean, of course it's true. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a factual thing. Just open your activity monitor now on your computer, on your Linux, Windows, Mac, and see how much resources your tools are using, right? So this is not my desire. I'm not saying what we are doing is correct. Absolutely not. I'm just saying that's how it is. I'm a realist. I'm not a dreamer or optimist or whatever. This is how, when you go to work, your manager doesn't tell you, okay, let's spend now 3 weeks optimizing memory of our React app or our Python app or whatever. Nobody says that, right? Because that's not the issue that we're dealing with anymore. So you get what I mean? So that's just how it is. It's not my preference. It's not my... I disagree 50%. I respect that you disagree, man. Of course, everybody that's perfectly fine, right? I'm just saying, I've been writing software in this industry for 20 years, and I've never had anyone come to me and say, let's spend a week optimizing web components to use less memory. This is not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of history that I personally experienced. Maybe you experience different. Then from your perspective, then you are right. I agree. So this is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact, in my opinion, right? Again, open your activity tab and see how many resources are your existing apps using, and I think that you're gonna get an implicit answer there without even discussing this, right? I mean, see how many gigs of RAM your operating system runs on your Mac OS. Without opening anything, just run a base operating system and tell me how much RAM is your Mac OS running. 6-7 gigs of RAM just to run an operating system, right? So, I mean, and we went to a moon with floppy disk, right? So, optimize what, right? What are we even talking about, right? So this is fine, right? I guess the only thing... am I sure that I want to do what? I mean, these are just random discussions, man. It doesn't really matter. Who is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. That's beside the point, right? Linux has its million other problems, right? This notion that switching to Linux somehow means switching to some sort of glorious operating system is a fucking bullshit of all bullshits on earth, right? Until you apt upgrade and update one day and you don't boot at all, right? I don't know, like, why is Linux presented as this some sort of like, oh, I switched to Linux because what the fuck are you talking about, man, right? These distros are so unstable oftentimes, right, that that's almost like, oh, I switched to Linux and now everything works great. It doesn't. Exactly. Highly skilled programmers with such experience are quote-unquote jerks. From your experience? No, I don't think that's true. Batman. No, I don't think so. I think majority of people in our industry are pretty kind. And I think that's why we're fortunate to work, at least here in Europe. I don't know how it is in the US. I've never worked there. I never will, based on what I can see now. But no, I don't. I think that if you go through life and you have a perception that all majority of people are jerks, then probably the issue is, I'm not talking about you directly, I'm just talking in third person. If a person goes through life and has an perception that people are jerks, there's probably something wrong with that person, right? Then that person has to start from themselves, right? So for me, all people are amazing. I love people. I love to meet different people that I disagree with, so I can become smarter every day, hopefully at least by a tiny bit. So I like to surround myself with people that I mostly disagree with, because then I'm not confirming my personal biases every single day, right? Because talking into an echo chamber is useless in life, right? You just stagnate and you drown in your old crap day by day, right? So no, I actually aim to meet people who are different, and still I think that they're awesome people. At least people that I work with, they're fantastic people. I would literally have to sit and think for 20 minutes to find something negative about them to say, honestly. So no, if you're a kind person, if you're nice and honest, people will be kind to you. Don't ever ask these questions, and don't ever think that I've heard that seniors are jerks, right? Only a fucking idiot could write that or say that somewhere, right? I don't, yeah. You have a lot of snowflakes today. You have a lot of idiots who are waking up to be offended, who can't wait to get offended, right? So that's just the new reality, right? There's a lot of people who are waking up and seeking to get offended, right? So fuck them. I mean, the thing is, look, as I always say, I'm a realist, right? Nobody cares about which operating system you're using. Nobody cares what editor you're using, what IDE you're using. Nobody gives a shit what key bindings you use, right? I mean, these things are so irrelevant that they're not worth even discussing, right? Like, do you like some distro that nobody fucking uses on Earth? More power to you, bro. Use your fucking operating system, like, use whatever you want. You like Vim, NeoVim, VS Code, Visual Studio, Notepad, Sublime Text, great, use it. But know that nobody on this earth, no employer, cares about what you write in or stare at every day to produce value. The only thing that employers care about is, are you delivering value by building a product, or are you not? So, do people want to use Fedoras, Windows, Mac OSs, Paint? Do it. But nobody gives a crap. Nobody is going to give you a job because of this. Nobody is going to give you a raise because you're using Fedora or Vim or Emacs or VS Code. Nobody is going to promote you because you're using Emacs and not Vim or whatever. If you want to progress in your career and build stuff, build value, be a nice person, show empathy, help your colleagues, be a proactive person, not reactive, don't complain without action, And these are the best things you can use to optimize your career. Which text editor you use, which operating system, like who gives a shit? Like why would I care which operating system my colleague uses? Like how does that affect me? Like I literally don't care. They can program if they ask me on a piece of paper as much as they want, right? As long as they are nice to work with, they provide results and they don't block the rest of the teammates. Dude, code on a piece of sand, right? That's perfectly fine. But these types of discussions, these sweaty basement dweller discussions, as I call them, are just so childish and ridiculous that if some other like species would look at us and they would probably say, look at these fucking adults. That guy is like 63 years old and he's discussing an operating system for 40 minutes, right? Who gives a shit, bro? Nobody. It's just like if people spend this time building things, by the time they spend arguing about the operating systems, programming languages and stuff, dude, it would be crazy. Is this still running? Exactly, dude. You can have your preferences. You should have preferences. I love people with preferences. I love people with character. I love people with differences. I literally seek to hang out with people who are purely individualistic. I hate ideologies. I hate people who are not themselves, but the ideology that they fall into. So don't take me wrong. I love a guy who's using, Mandriva or whatever, right? But that's your preference, and that's great. You can have it. You should have it. You should be happy with it, but it's yours. So you don't have to enforce it on others. It's fine, right? So it's like you want to use fucking like exactly, dude. So use whatever fuck you want, and that's it. Like it's so simple. I'm happy for everybody, right? Just use whatever you want, man. Okay. I actually don't like this at all. The guy that I highly respect, is called Adi Osmani. This guy is a legend. He wrote the book, JavaScript book, maybe 15 years ago, called JS Patterns. You must, if you have seen this book, it's a very old book. He wrote it. He also made this website, patterns.dev, which is another amazing resource. But I know Adi maybe for around 15 years. Since he wrote, let me actually show you, he wrote this book. And I know this, but not, I think it was the first version that I had. Let me try to find it. Yeah, I think it's this one. Yeah, no, it's not this one. It's the previous one. No, he wrote the book. He wrote the book called Learning JavaScript Design Patterns. But yeah, Adi is an amazing guy. It's basically, I don't follow many people, maybe 2 or 3 people in total. This is one of the guy that, and also the Stoic book that some of you are referencing now, he actually wrote, and as you can see, he's also part of many projects. He runs a Chrome team at Google. Yeah. Yeah, of course, guys. Of course, my pleasure. My pleasure. A Chrome team. Chrome, like the browser, the Chrome browser team. I don't use Next.js. I hate these types of things. I just use plain React. I don't use Next.js or any crap like that, right? I don't need that garbage. And I personally run away from these monolithic hells as fast as I can. Have I heard of the React Router Remix framework? I mean, no, not. I don't know what you're referring to. I mean, I have no problems with my current React Router DOM. I mean, I'm using React Router DOM, just a normal router, right, for like 15 years since it exists. So I don't have problems with it. It does pretty much basic things that an HTML5 history API router would do, right? And I don't use these monolithic server-side rendered things because I find them useless for my use cases. I'm using Tailwind, yes. I agree with you, Ismail. I agree with you. I think I'm using Redux, yes. And I have a 1 hour tutorial on Redux, I believe, on my YouTube channel. Give me 1 second. I mean, I was a few years late. Redux is very simple, right? Redux is incredibly simple. If you want, I can give you a 5-minute tutorial into Redux. I can probably teach you Redux in 5 minutes. So let me try. Let me try to teach you Redux in 5 minutes, literally. All right. Okay. So programmer network is down. Really? Maybe the subdomain is not resolving. Oh, wow. Yeah, shit, man. No, it's not down. It's just I need to that alias doesn't work. If you fuck, actually that's very good to know. That's very good to know. Fuck, I need to fix that on the CDN level. Let me actually write it down. Thank you. Give me 1 second. Let me just write it down. Shit, that's terrible. Why would I need static pages? What for? Why would I want to serve static pages? Like, if you go to programmer network right now, do you know if I'm rendering static pages or not? If you go now to programmer.network, like, does this feel not amazing to you? Like, when you click on something, does it feel slow? Does it feel... Yeah, but SEO also works for AJAX calls as well. And what exactly are you building now that needs SEO? Because again, I'm trying to get you to a point to understand that the things that you're saying now are not product of your experience and opinion, they're product of marketing that you are exposed to, right? I exactly knew what you're gonna say, because of course at the end of the day, when you challenge people on these things, right? So I mean, this is a generic response from all people I challenge in server-side rendering. They end up saying SEO, right? SEO where? What are you building now that requires SEO to be perfectly optimized? And even if you do so, you're gonna have to pay for ads a lot. SEO doesn't come from HTML pages. It comes from content that you need to have. It comes from the paid and organic search as well. So you can build a website in the most optimized possible way on earth. If you don't have the content, if you don't pay for content or paid ads, nobody's ever gonna visit your site. So people are so locked in to this idea that if you somehow server-side render, that's good. What if your server-side rendering is slow? So what if your server is simply not delivering these pages quickly? So there's so many things to question there. But there's this stigma created about if you don't server-side render. That's not true, man. Every single page that I have on Programmer Network right now, and there's not many pages. If we take a look at the simple statistics, this is not out of the asshole opinion. This is our sitemap that we have pushed, that I have pushed, right? So if you go to Programmer Network /sitemap, right? You're gonna find our sitemap. If we go to pages, right? If we go to performance, you'll notice that nearly everything is indexed, and when you search for even random terms, they are actually discovered on Programmer Network, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I sound maybe a little bit annoyed, irritated, steady bear. Maybe that's also my character, but I try to be real, and I try to give, especially younger people who come to this stream, some real insights, so when they proceed with their careers, they can actually gain something real, right? I can smell propaganda in 3 seconds, because I've been part of this industry long enough to hear these generic arguments, right? So I try to fight them as much as I can, and I try to challenge them, right? A show was 24 hours data. Let's see. It is propaganda, right? The thing is, so again, if we go to Programmer Network, right? The only thing that we have that is indexed, right, is, yeah, but that has nothing to do with server-side rendered pages. This is like you're making an assumption based on that has nothing to do with what you think it has. We don't have content on this platform, so this has nothing to do with that, right? This is what you're missing. This has nothing to do with server-side rendered or not. This website is faster than majority of server-side rendered. So listen, just to be clear, I'm not saying that server-side rendering in certain instances is not better for SEO still today. I'm not saying that. That's not the point. I'm saying that server-side rendering can be less efficient and worse for SEO as well. So if I send a request to your API and your API takes 3 seconds to server-side render that and send it back to me, that's actually worse, way worse than having a single-page app, number one. Number two, SEO has very little to do necessarily with just your rendering style, and more to do with how much content you have, how many clicks, how many links are linking to your website, etc., etc., etc. If you care to understand how this works, I think they used to have an image somewhere that they exposed very long ago. I don't actually remember. I can't find it. I saw this many years ago. So either way, look, I guess I don't want to talk too much about this. Just use simple tools. As simple tools as you possibly can to build things. React.js, the reason why we all switched to React.js 10-15 years ago from AngularJS and Knockout and Ember.js and jQuery is because when React.js came out, it was so simple that people just fell in love with it. And reactjs indeed is still incredibly amazing and incredibly simple if you just use the bare minimum of it. So reactjs itself is a library that lets you create a component, and then you compose multiple components into views, and then when you need routing, when you need multiple pages, you add a router, and almost just the router and just React is sufficient for you to build amazing front-end applications. Of course now, and then as your complexity increases, you can add state management libraries, you can add global state, you can add some Flux, Redux, whatever, etc, etc, etc. But fundamentally, like 99.9% of the time, you can just use a bare library because that's all you need, right? 5-minute Redux course. Sorry, let's do that. Yes. Let's do that. Let's go to JS bin. Let's do a quick Redux course. Somebody asked about that. Okay, so yeah, sure. Let's do that. Okay, but we need to draw, right? So let's go to draw. Okay. Okay, so let's try to teach Redux in 5-10 minutes, right? So, but before I start, don't start the timer yet. Let's just talk about state, right? Because state is basically, as most of us know, right, is one of the hardest things in programming in general. How do you keep state reasonable? And because we have different types of state, we have short-term state, long-term state, blah blah blah. We have the state that has to be accessible everywhere. We have the state that has to be accessible within certain functions, unit, etc. Right? So Redux basically, right, is a global state, right? So it's a global state. So it's an object on top of your app, right? So it's an object on top of your application. Like this is your app, and then your Redux is like on top of it, right? So any component, any function, basically, let's refer to components. Component basically is a function, right? We know that as well. So if we remove JSX, let's say from Vue.js, AngularJS, or React, a component is just a function. So if you remember, we can also write React without JSX. We can do it like this, and then we say, you know, type span, right? Whatever. So this is how when React.js was released without JSX, we would write React like using create element. Okay, so components are functions, right? So really, what Redux really is like, hey, let's put this state somewhere. So all of my components, aka functions, can ask for any of the state, no matter where they are, right? So they can be deep somewhere in the tree, in the HTML tree, right? And any component anywhere really can access this state, right? So let's just get these basics. So these are some other components. At any given time, right, this state is here. Then we typically, with React app, we use something called React Redux, which is essentially using a provider pattern, right? So essentially, this thing gets the state. So we wrap our whole app in some provider. We say like we say you know, provider, and then so our app is typically wrapped in a bunch of different types of providers, and then we can consume the value off of this provider, right? So fundamentally, this provider in this case gets our Redux state. So we say provider, and we say usually value is equal to our Redux state, the object itself, right? So this is kind of, so typically whenever you're using Redux, so in any of the libraries, you really need to expose that state to your app. So you can use Redux with Vue.js, you can use it with plain JavaScript, you can use it with jQuery. It's agnostic of the library. You don't have to use any UI library at all. So when you create your Redux store, when you create this singular object, you need to pass it somehow to your modern UI library of choice, right? So when it comes to React, we use the provider pattern. So we wrap our whole app, and then we can consume. We can use the consumer. Basically, we consume the states, the parts of the Redux state in any of our components, and we do that by using the provider that comes with this library, React Redux. So we typically say use selector, and you select some piece of state. So you say state, and then you say, hey, I want logged in user, or let's just say user, and then you say state.user, right? So you do this somewhere in your app. Somewhere you say, hey, Redux, please give me this piece of state in, and now we're talking high level. We're going to talk a little bit low level in a second, right? So this is kind of the general idea. We have a global state that's accessible anywhere. We provide the state typically in a different way depending on the framework of your choice. And then we consume that piece of data anywhere we want, right? So you could say that's why this is called global state. And if it, local state would mean if data was here, it would be local to this component, right? So that's what we mean when we say global and local state, right? Okay. So this is kind of the idea about creating the store. We create the store, and a bunch of these terms sound very complex. Dispatcher, action creator. I'm going to demystify this in a second. Dispatcher, action creator, reducers, blah blah blah, right? Right, I'm gonna dismiss. So all of this sounds cool. It's super simple. All of these are functions, right? Okay, so cool. So now if we go and kind of take a look at the Redux or a Flux pattern, really, there's some terminology. There's an action. There is for example, a reducer. There's an action creator. There's store, right? I'll just nail down all the terminology that this kind of pattern brings. There's a middleware. Middleware, as you know from other places, backend and stuff, is typically a function that gets called in the middle of something. So for example, if you're talking about HTTP libraries like Go, like languages like Go, nodejs, or whatever, you're gonna hear a term middleware. It's basically a function that gets access to request and response object during the request response lifecycle, right? So in the context of Redux, middleware is something you can register. So for every action that gets dispatched, you can intercept that action and alter if that action does something else. Whatever. I'm going to show you in a second. So what is really Redux, right? So let's go now to JSBin, right? So let's imagine that you have, let's imagine that we have a variable called number, and we have an application that has to change this number. So we have some functions like foo, function bar. We're writing function expressions, right? This is called function expression. This would be called function declaration, right? So this is terminology also useful for you to know. This is function declaration, right? So these would be professional terms to use for constraints in the language, right? Okay, so we have a foo and bar, and let's imagine that this foo changes the number to 3, right? And bar changes number to 11. So now, if I call foo and if I call a bar, and if we print the number, the number is going to be 11, right? We can see here, number is 11. Cool, right? So that makes sense. Why wouldn't it be, right? We just, right? The biggest problem with writing a super imperative code like this is that it gets very difficult to figure out what is changing the state, right? So the intention is unclear. intention is very unclear, right? So instead of doing something like this, somebody created a flux pattern and said, you know what, Alex, what if we create for every state change, with every state change, what if we had a function that changes that state? So for example, in this case, instead of manually mutating the number, we could have a function called function change number, and here is going to get a new number, and it's going to set number to a new number, right? Cool. So now we can actually come here and say change number to 3. And here we can say change number to 11, right? And then if we run this again, things should still be the same, 11, right? So same result so far. But now we're doing things a little bit different. Now for every specific state change in our application, we're creating a function that describes that, right? So now we have functions that define their intent, right? So whenever we want to change the number, now we have this action. This is called action, right? All right, so great. So this is the first part of Redux. It's the action. Action basically is just a function that, when gets dispatched, changes some value in the state. But as you can see here, we still have just singular number is 0. Typically, because as I said, Redux has a singular object state that looks like this, and it's usually an object like this. So we would have to set the number here to the state as 0. Now we also have imagine we're now implementing Redux from scratch. So we're building now a Redux library from scratch, right? So now we're gonna change this, and we're gonna say state.number is new number. And here we're gonna say, pretty much the same, right? Okay. So now we have the action, and we need to create a dispatcher. So basically, a dispatch is a function that takes in the action and then tells the Redux internals to update the state. So that's just another function called dispatch. Typically, on a low level, under quotes low level, it takes an action and the existing state, and then it yields a new state. So it doesn't mutate the state ever, it returns a new state. So basically what we do here, we also need to have a reducer function. And this reducer basically defines how the state changes. So this function is like defines what it means change number. I'm going to show you in a second. This says do something, and this is what am I doing, right? So the action is what am I doing. Dispatch is like, hey Redux, do something, change the value. And then the reducer is where we define what our actions do. So I'm going to show you now in a second. So typically in Redux, every action like this carries one mandatory property in the object that it returns, and that is the type property. So here, this is actually now the action creator, and change number has to return. So every action in Redux returns an object. Why? Because typically for every action you have a type of the action and the value that it carries optionally. So here we're gonna now say type change number, right? And you're gonna see in a moment why is this needed. It's gonna click I promise. So let me just clean this up. So now we have this change number. It's returning an object. It's just a plain JavaScript function, super simple. It returns a type and a value. So here we're gonna say new number. And this is where the trick is. So every time somewhere where you see in some code base dispatch, I don't know, some function and then some value here, this is what we're gonna illustrate now, right? So now this type enables us to implement what does it mean to change number relative to our state. So inside of the reducer typically takes an action and a state. So actually Let's comment this out for a moment. And now here inside of the reducer, we can say if action.type is change number, what does it mean for me as a developer? What does the change number mean? Well, it means taking the state, and we're not going to implement real Redux now because we would have to implement immutability, use immutable JS, whatever. I'm not going to do that now. This is like a super simplified version. Here you would say state.number is action.value, right? We know that this action has a value. We can see it here, right? And then otherwise, if none of the actions, just return whatever the existing state is. So we're going to say return state, right? Cool. Okay. So now we have a reducer. What is really a reducer? Reducer is a function that where you define what does it mean do something, right? In our case, we have an action called change number. We can see the type here. So this is just a function that's like, okay, when we call this action, what does it mean change number? Well, for me, it means state.number is this. I can also write this banana, right? So I define what these changes are. Okay. And now lastly, we need to dispatch this action. So somewhere over here, I'm going to clean this up. Now I need a dispatcher. So these are the three most crucial things about Redux. So we have an action creator here. Why is it called action creator? Because it's a function that creates object actions. So when I call change number, it's going to yield this object always. So that's why it's called creator. It creates the action object, action creator, right? Cool. So now we're going to implement the dispatch. So we're going to have the dispatch. The dispatch is going to take the action. And in this case, if you're using Redux, that's really what it takes. So we're going to actually still update this, do something with the state, but bear with me for a second. Okay, so how do we implement the dispatch? Well, the dispatch is going to take the action object, and then it's going to call the reducer. So here, we're simply going to say, call the reducer, and then pass the action, and then the state. So basically something like this. So when I call the dispatch and I give it an action, this action, as you can see, we're passing to the reducer here. So let's actually see what happens now. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say dispatch. I'm going to create a new object using my action creator. So I'm going to say change number, and I'm going to give it 22, right? So let's be a computer now. So change number gets passed here. This is going to return this object. So this thing, actually, if you want, we can just say const my change is this. So this is going to yield now this object. And this object is going to have value of 22. And actually, you don't even have to use an action creator. You can just hard code the object in here. Like you can just say type is whatever, blah, blah. But bear with me. So that's what we're doing. So now if we go into the reducer is going to get an action. We're going to check, hey, is the action type change number? It is. Then it's going to update something. So let's do this now, and let's print console.log state. Boom. What is it? What's our state? Number is 22. So literally now, if you would look at this code without looking at some of the internals we wrote here, you wouldn't even notice that this is not an actual Redux itself, right? So if I would push this stuff down so you don't see the details, right? Then if I call this now and you see the state, you would be like, yeah, Alex is using Redux. But we have implemented super primitive version in 20 lines of code. So this is really all that there is. So this is what you have to understand about Redux, that you have three concepts: a dispatcher, actions and action creators, and then the reducers. And reducers are functions that we define what it means, where we react to our actions, our declarative actions, right? And then they update the state. Of course, I could speak about this for a lot longer, getting into more details and stuff. But fundamentally, if you can understand this concept here that really fits a single screen, then everything else is going to click. Just keep in mind here now, whenever you want to describe something else in your app, I don't know, let's imagine that we had to-dos. That's a typical example. Right? Let's imagine we had to-dos and we wanted to add, delete whatever to-dos. Well, then let's do that. So let's create add to-do. Right? We can literally do this. And let's implement another one. Remove to do, right? Let's imagine this remove to do is going to get an ID of the, it's going to get the ID. Yeah, and this is actually going to take the text. So let's just say text. Then we go to our reducer here and we define what that means. So we're going to say if action.type is, and typically you would store these into constant variables so you don't make a typo. So typically you're going to see something like this. Right? And then you will reuse those in your reducers and your actions, right? So if I do like remove to do here, and then remove to do here, now we no longer have the hard code strings, right? Let's actually, and then add to do as well. Right? And then we're gonna do this. It is simple, right? It's very, very simple. So here now we're gonna say state.todos.push, for example. We're gonna say something like this, action.text. So we're gonna say text action.text. And then we can keep some reference of an ID. So we can have something just somewhere here as an example, var ID is 0. We can have it global state, and we can say here ID plus equals 1, right? Right? And we do the same if we want to remove. We want to remove by ID here as well, right? So we're going to say state.todos.filter. And then we're going to say, we're going to say state.todos is state dot, we're going to mutate here dot filters, right? And then is not equal to action.id. And now we have built a simple to do basically example with this thing, right? Same thing here. Now we're gonna say dispatch add to do. We're gonna say buy apples, and then if we go ahead and print the state, I probably have a typo somewhere. I think that's what it's complaining about. Yeah, I think this thing might not support ES6, believe it or not. This oh, it's because of the action, sorry. Where do I have the typo? I don't know. Is it maybe this that it doesn't support ES6? It is. Ah, Jesus Christ, man! Why? I just can't. When I worked at the university, I used to use this with my students. So I just can't let go of this. Anyway, it's beside the point now. I think I'll send you this example, but this more or less sums up the core that you have to understand about this technology, right? That's really all that there is to it, almost. And everything else is just wrappers and abstraction, of course, more clever stuff. But fundamentally, that's really what it does. That's really what it does. There is the link. Yeah. My pleasure, of course, my pleasure. Just remember, you have an action that's just an object. Is like, hey, basically, what this flux pattern really is a declarative way to explain your state changes in your application. So as you saw when I started explaining this, when you say somewhere in your function x is equal to 11, that often is way harder to find than if you stumble upon a function that's called dispatch and then change x. Now you can actually, basically the point of having a centralized state machine, and this doesn't even have to do much with Redux, is that your whole state changes are defined in your reducers. So whenever you're asking, oh fuck, something in my app is changing x wrongly, you know exactly where to go. You're gonna go to your reducer and realize that you have a bug there. So you're never changing values in place. You're always dispatching an action that's gonna update your global state, which then yields the new state. So in simple words, this is not about syntax or whatever. This is about having a centralized state machine that you can count on. So if your state is changed and it's changed wrong, then you know where to go instantly. You instantly go to your reducers and you find the case, so change x in there, and you're like, oh man, instead of adding +1 to x, I was -1x, right? So whatever. So the core value is that your state is separated from your UI, for example, or any other logic. You have your state machine and you have your user interface, and your user interface is just saying, hey, when I click on this button, hey state machine, update this state. I'm not gonna update it myself. I'm just telling you, take this value and update this state. And then you go to your reducer and you define what does it mean for you, change x, change y, buy banana, whatever that action is. That action is a human readable action, so you define what it means for you, right? So for example, if we go to the programmer network frontend, let me actually show you, outplayed, give me 2 seconds and I'm answering your question. So if we go like to programmer network, for example, right, if I search for dispatch, right, you're gonna see that I have shit tons of dispatches all across the app. So let's take a look at some of them, right? So here we have handle add bookmark, right? So somewhere if I go to programmer network and there's an article that I like, right, like this one, I can click this thing to add it to read later, right? You can see I bookmarked it. So let's see what the hell does that actually mean for my app. And this is it, handle add bookmark, right? So if I go to add bookmark, I'm gonna see that I have some asynchronous stunk. We haven't spoken about this, nor we will, because it's too much. But then I can go to my reducer, I can find this thing in my reducer and see what this actually does, right? So if I go to my user reducer here, I can search for add bookmark, and this happens to be an asynchronous thing, so something that doesn't happen immediately, it happens in time. And you can see this is what it means for me to add a bookmark. So when I click add bookmark, the promise is going to be in a pending state JavaScript promise, right? That's how we deal with concurrency. Actually, that is correct way to say it, because I almost wanted to say multi-threading, but there is no such thing in JavaScript, right? So that's how we deal with concurrency in JavaScript with callback functions and promises. So when I click add bookmark, I'm saying when that promise is loading, set the user state transition to be loading, and set the ID of the bookmark. So it doesn't actually matter what it does. The point is, this is what it means to me in my reducer when somebody says, I want to add a bookmark. But I know if that state is wrong, so if I click this button and something goes wrong, I know that I'm going to come here and find the bug over here, right? So that is the one of the main benefits of using state machines, is that your state transitions are centralized kinda, and you know where to look for, where to find bugs if there are bugs, right? Yeah, okay. Hope it makes sense. What keyboard I have? I think I have, I don't know if I've added it here. I think I have hardware. I don't know if it's there. I've created this literally for the stream. You're not tough. What does it mean, tough? Tooth? You're not tooth? What is tooth? I'm not a stone. A light porous rock formed by consolidating a volcanic ash. I mean, technically, many of us probably do originate from tufts, right? Like we were, you know, like bacteria and stuff before we existed as humankind. So technically, when you say, "Hey, Alex, you're not tooth," I kind of am tooth, right? All of us are. Let me.
Tough. Tough.
Tough.
Tough.
Tooth.
Tough.
Tough. Tough.
Tough.
Huh? What a strange thing to say to a human being. You're not. So basically, you told me, "Hey, Alex, you're not a geological stone 1501 ECU." That's kind of what you told me, right? Which is fair enough. You're actually absolutely right. I'm not a tough. Tooth, wait.
Tough.
Tough. Tough. What does the tough means? Oh, tough, like this. The slang term tough. Tooth. Oh, it's a slang. I see. Something that is cool, impressive. Did you just say that I'm not cool, bro? Because, I mean, I was fine by not being a rock. But not being tough? Are you saying that I'm not tough, bro? That hurts, man. You know, you know what, bro? You know what? You're tough, okay? You're tough, all right, bro? Next time, look at your own self in the mirror. That's what you are, bro. You're tough. And you know what? You're a felsic. You're a felsic tooth, okay? You're absolutely a felsic tooth. You ingenious rock. All right, cool. But anyway, yeah, that's it. This is my keyboard. I have multiple keyboards. I'm a nerd because everybody knows that if you have a good keyboard, you're more productive. Yeah, I mean, like for every 100 additional euros that you spend on a keyboard, it's clear that your productivity goes by around 27%. It's completely proven by very rational people like software developers. They say that if you buy a mechanical keyboard with a certain sound, it improves your productivity to a level of AI, basically, right? So that's definitely, keyboard matters a lot, especially split keyboard. Yeah, then that's it. You are the hot, like we are below you. I'm not even using split or quadruple keyboards, but Boomka, you know what, bro? You're tough, bro. You're tough. That's why you're using a split keyboard. You're tough, and I'm not. If you add lube, it adds a 30%, 100%. I'm 100% sure that it adds 30% of XML. Yeah, 100%. I mean, is it a coincidence? Is it not free space? Who the hell knows? I trust them. If a keyboard company says that, it must be true, right? But you know what, guys? Oh, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, like I saw that there's literally videos about this outplayed on the internet. Like, I'm gonna share my opinion. It's just out of the asshole opinion. So first and foremost, if something that somebody is doing is 10% faster, I mean, there's nothing to discuss there. I mean, fuck yeah, right? More power to that. My main concern has nothing to do with speed, right? Like, I've never opened my VS Code and said, oh shit, I really wish that my types resolve not in 12 milliseconds, but in 6 milliseconds, right? So what exactly they're fixing, I personally don't know. Is it compile times? Is it IntelliSense? Whatever it is, I personally don't have problems with this. I've never looked at my build and said, oh man, my TypeScript compiler is taking 4 seconds. I wish it's taking 3 seconds, right? Again, more power to optimization. Even for VS Code, sure, I know what it is for. It's just the question is not what it is for. The question is, have you noticed, have you stumbled upon issues with it being slow? Because that is like saying, that is like these people who say, I bought a car that can go 500 miles an hour, but in 99.9% of Earth, you can't drive more than 100, right? So this optimization is obviously welcome. Every optimization is welcome. It would be no-brainer to say that. It's just, what is the consequence of this optimization, right? So for example, I think more rational questions to ask would be, okay, so how does this affect the TypeScript team? How will they ship new TypeScript features, right? Because that's what we really care about. Like if a TypeScript developer would choose 20 milliseconds to 10 milliseconds optimization, or getting a technology to evolve, I'm sure that majority would choose the latter, right? So this is not about like, oh, do I not want things to be 10 times faster? I mean, I don't think that question has to be asked. That's ridiculous, right? To even discuss. It's more about if, and I'm sure that people who work on this technology are amazing, brilliant people, right? So who the fuck am I to even doubt them, right? So considering that they made such a decision, I love Golang. I think Go is a beautiful language. It's one of my favorite, if not the most favorite language of mine. So I think Go is a great choice. Again, it's very hard to predict the trajectory of this project now once they switch. So they will have to have people that will know how to write Go. They will have to get more in-house knowledge on how to do certain things, how to deal with concurrency, they're now moving from a single-threaded JavaScript code base to a multi-threaded Golang, right? So race conditions, deadlocks, etc., 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 right? So let's not pretend that every technology comes with certain knowledge requirements, and it comes with some ups and downs, right? So the beauty of concurrency in JavaScript, the beauty is that it's predictable and it's pretty simple to deal with, right? So because we don't have a true parallelism in JavaScript, we don't have multi-threading in JavaScript, right? So I would say that so far, I mean, it looks great. It's just very hard to know the long-term consequence of this huge technical decision, because every big technical decision you make is gonna have huge consequences, not short-term but long-term, right? So this is kind of my take. But am I not happy that they want to improve speed and memory and efficiency of something? Of course, yes. Fuck yeah. I mean, amazing work, right? It's just, let's see, like, more important things than that. Because I've never heard anyone, myself or my colleagues or developers here in this chat say, oh man, TypeScript works so slowly for me, right? Oh, I wish that it's working faster. I haven't... So the question is, are they doing this optimization for themselves to improve their own build times, right? So maybe when they're compiling Chromium project, when they're compiling various different types of things, maybe they care about efficiency, right? Maybe their CI, their continuous integration server is taking too long, and they're like, fuck man, if we compile this using Go, this would have compiled a lot faster. Who knows, right? So I don't know things behind the scene. but I'm sure that they haven't made this decision just based on having VS Code work faster, right? I'm very sure of that. Yeah. So, but again, these are very and highly talented and technical people who are doing these things. I'm sure that they haven't sat like assholes and just randomly said, let's use Go, right? So if they decided, made that decision, I'm sure it's been a long discussion. It's been a lot of opinions. That, you know, don't forget that these guys have access to some of the most talented engineers in their company, right? They can just call experts in low-level languages. They can get a lot of experts on board. So trust me, I mean, I know how I make technical decisions with my own team of 7 people, and I also happen to have some insights on how these decisions are made. I can just tell you from the first hand how things at Google work. For example, if you work at Google at any solid position or Microsoft, you can almost get a contact of anyone there. You can literally call a guy who invented protocols and the fucking internet, right? So I'm sure that these guys had sufficient amount of opinions collected when they made this decision, right? So our junior dev salary is enough to live alone in Denmark. I'm considering relocation, but I have limited experience. Copenhagen is probably one of the most expensive cities in the world. So this city is brutally expensive, and would it be sufficient for you to live here with a junior salary? That purely depends on your requirements and expectations of what living is. You would have to share a room maybe with someone else or whatever, or find some co-living space like Lifehacks and some of the other startups here in Denmark. But rent, you know, I pay 2,500 euros rent. I mean, we do live pretty central, but you will, like, if you want a solid apartment, I have kids and wife and stuff, right? Right now, my rent is around 2,500 euros, which is brutal, right? But I think it's possible, yeah. I mean, there are many juniors living here. It's not that Copenhagen is a city of some sort of experts, right? So you just have to do your research, and you have to understand what type of life you will get for a certain amount of money. And then you have to weigh that relative to your lifestyle, right? If your expectations are to eat outside every day in Copenhagen, that's not gonna happen, right? If your expectations are to get drunk every weekend in a bar, that's not gonna happen, right? So I think you have to draw a table, like literally just columns and rows, write expectation on one side, and then the rest of the stuff on the right side, like left and right, right? And then see, this is what I expect, and this is what I can get, right? So everybody has different expectations, different perception, different kind of, yeah. All right, but let's see. I want to see if there's any more questions, because I'm gonna go off. So I'm just gonna wait a little more just to see if there's any other questions. Please ask. I'm originally from the Balkans, and I've been living in Scandinavia for around 15 years now. For around 8 or 9 years in Denmark and 5 years in Sweden. My pleasure, Outplayed. My pleasure. So you have to just figure out what it is that you seek for, right? Because money and salaries, they are very vague representations of anything, right? When somebody tells you from Silicon Valley that they're making 300,000 a year or 200,000, you have to also understand what that means, right? So salary is always correlated with a living standard where you are, right? So a person in Silicon Valley pays $5,000-$6,000 a month for a single room in Palo Alto or somewhere, right? So salary always correlates with lifestyle and stuff like that, right? Steady Bear, thank you very much, man. I'm also very sorry. Like, hopefully over time I can make some schedules so you guys know when I stream and stuff. As I said many times, I don't want to do that because I do this for fun and I do this for fulfillment, right? So I don't want to commit myself to the stream. I don't want to also commit you guys to my stream and I don't show up, right? So that's why I just stream whenever I feel like. It's very random, but any other way would be less enjoyable for me. If this stream provided any financial or any other motivation for me to, let's say, put some money into my programmer network projects and stuff, of course, to be very frank with you, I would have streamed a lot more. But besides fun and just chatting to you guys and having fun with you, it's very impossible to find reasons why you would stream, right? It's just it doesn't financially, it's absolutely useless. Actually, quite even contrary, it's more than useless, right? Okay, let me just read the question. Bowie, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like keep in mind, like there's, I don't know, there's one of these things in psychology, human psychology is like, I don't know exactly the psychological term, professional term for that, but keep in mind that there is this phenomena in human psychology that if you meet a person that knows something to do well, so for example, maybe you have perceived me to be a good programmer, then you might perceive me to be good at any other thing, right? So I cannot... I'm just a regular guy like most people here, right? I know 2 things in my life and I suck at all other things, right? So I would be very careful to give you advice beyond something that I personally experienced or whatever. So the thing that you wrote there is goes beyond my scope, right? I can only tell you based on what you wrote that hard work is not always relevant, right? You have to know how to sell yourself. You need to know how to bullshit others. So maybe your friend is just better at balancing some of these skills, right? You might be fixing these cars better or whatever, but that's not necessarily what sells, right? The guy that works at your company the most is not the guy that's going to get promoted all the time, right? The guy that's going to get promoted is the guy that has soft skills to win people over and stuff like that, right? NND, I am as well, man. Dobro veče. So good to have you, man. Good to have you, dude. I was following the protests and stuff, so... But yeah, that's just my perspective. But be careful again. I'm a technical person, right? So I would not dare to. Yeah. Hey Reggie, unfortunately, man, I'm ending the stream now, so I'm sorry you came a little late. Pretty much. What can I say, fellas? I need to go. My wife is still awake. I want to see her a little bit. If you please can, take a moment and please sign up on Programmer Network if you can, if you want. And then I have a YouTube channel as well that, of course, if you haven't followed it already, please do. It takes 1 click in case you like my streams and you want to hang out with me whenever I'm around. That's a good thing to click to basically be notified. Yeah, what can I say? Thank you very much for being here. It was a pleasure answering some of your questions and getting some insights from you as well. And I'll catch you guys up soon, hopefully in a couple of days or sometime. PJ, absolutely I can. I can and I will, and I'll get back to you on Twitch, man. All right. Peace out, everybody. Yes, I will. All right, I gotta go. I gotta run. Peace out, everybody. Bye.